Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. Are we enjoying our winter-like weather? Getting a little bit of snow here and there. Feeling more and more like winter is set in. So, I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm still not exactly ready for it. No, it's going to be a long winter. I know we're going to have to deal with snow. I just hope we can wait just a little bit longer before we get a little bit of the deep snow. So, and we're coming up on Thanksgiving. I hope everybody's got their Thanksgiving plans, going to have planning on nice, quiet, peaceful Thanksgiving. Hopefully there won't be any heated arguments over the state of what's going on politically, and everyone can find common ground and a reason to be thankful and a reason to just sit back and enjoy the day. But there's a couple of things I wanted to cover, and one of the things that's very important to me, I hope it's important to you, is private property rights. So I want to cover this because we're finding more and more, and thanks to the author of this article that I'm about to get through with you, that private property rights have been under attack by this state legislature for quite a number of years now, not just this session, in recent past sessions dating back to, 2010 or so. But this article I want to cover first is by Dave Sulia. I found this in Vermont Daily Chronicle. Let's see, it's November 24, 2025. Towns push back against murky enhanced energy plan. A recent select board hearing in Pittsford highlighted a statewide issue that many Vermont towns are now facing: uncertainty over what municipalities are legally required to include in their town plans and energy planning documents, and what language is being pushed by state agencies even though it does not appear in statute. The debate in Pittsford wasn't about personalities or local politics. It reflected a broader question on confronting nearly every town in Vermont. Where does state law and agency preference begin? At the center of the confusion is the Enhanced Energy Plan, EEP, an optional addendum created under Act 174 of 2016. This is why I referred in the beginning to how legislatures in the recent past, now this one dating back to 2016, have been slowly impinging on your town's right to choose the direction it wants to go, where it wants to go, and ultimately your private property rights. Towns that adopt an EEP and meet the state's checklist may qualify for, quote, substantial deference, end quote, in Public Utility Commission, PUC, review of energy generation projects. Substantial deference means the PUC must give the town's written siting standards additional weight, but it does not give towns veto authority. The PUC retains full discretion to approve projects even when they conflict with local preferences. So a very small board can dictate to any town, even though the town doesn't like a plan, that the PUC feels should be approved. And the PUC's biggest guiding force is not municipal planning documents. It is the state of Vermont's comprehensive energy plan and statewide energy goals, which prioritize renewable energy deployment. If a project aligns with those goals and meets regulatory criteria, the PUC may approve it regardless of whether a town has a certified EEP. Now, my question is to you, ladies and gentlemen, we've covered the Shaftesbury Solar Project in southern Vermont in over numerous shows. And I wonder, was this part of the EEP part of why the Shaftesbury Solar was given a certificate of public good, even though there was pushback locally, and even though those energy credits may be used locally or not locally, and the energy may not even go to use in the state of Vermont. So, back to the article. This is why Act 174 certification is often described by municipal attorneys as, quote, a modest procedural advantage, not a decisive factor. Where the equity and environmental justice language comes from. Many towns express concern and confusion over the equity, environmental justice, and related ideological language that now appears in EEP templates distributed by regional planning commissions, RPCs. This specific framework, which with sections on distributional, procedural, and structural equity, does not appear in, Act 174, Title 24, Municipal Planning and Development, Title 30, PUC citing criteria, the Vermont Constitution, or the U.S. Constitution. The source of the language is not statute, but rather environmental justice policy created under Act 154, which applies to state agencies, not towns. Climate Council guidance, Department of Public Service, DPS, planning standards, RPC interpretations of those standards. In short, this equity framework is not a statutory requirement on municipalities. Nothing in the municipal planning or subsection 248 statutes tells a town it must adopt this language, but regional planning commissions often present it as mandatory for Act 174 certification. Is this compelled speech? A question local officials are asking. Towns that refuse to include the equity or environmental justice sections are told that they cannot receive Act 174 certification. That is the only consequence, but it is a meaningful one for towns seeking greater influence in PUC proceedings. This dynamic raises an important constitutional question. Is Vermont effectively conditioning a regulatory benefit on the adoption of ideological language? Municipal officials across the state have begun to ask whether this amounts to a form of compelled speech, especially given that town plans are municipal legislative documents adopted locally. EEP certification is optional. The equity language is not required by statute, and the only penalty is created by agency policy, not law. While no Vermont court has addressed this issue directly, the concern itself is legitimate. Should towns be pressured to adopt political or ideological frameworks that are not part of the governing statutes? What the law actually requires the PUC to consider. Under 30 VSA subsection 248, the PUC must consider orderly development of the region, the municipal plan regardless of certification, aesthetics, environmental impacts, public health, safety, and need. Certification under Act 174 elevates the weight given to certain siting standards, but does not override the PUC's obligation to meet statewide energy goals. The most influential factor in any subsection 248 case remains whether the project advances the state's long-term renewable energy targets. So this is all the state in a roundabout way telling towns what they must and must not do, in my opinion. And it looks like in the author's opinion, this means a town with a certified enhanced energy plan has a stronger voice but not control. What happened to local control, ladies and gentlemen? This is what I'm wondering reading this. And a town without certification still has a legally recognized plan whose clear objective standards must be considered. The Pittsford Plan, a local example of balanced planning. Pittsford's current town plan shows that many Vermont towns strive for, a balance between private property rights, aesthetics, rural character, and sensible land use planning. The plan includes clear protections for conservation areas, limits on development in steep slopes, wetlands, and river corridors, priority for commercial and industrial development near existing infrastructure, recognition that landowners may use their property, including for solar, within those constraints. This reflects the reality in many rural communities. Residents may not love the look of large solar installations, but they respect the rights of landowners to make economic choices unless the town is prepared to purchase or conserve the land themselves. It's a pragmatic Vermont-style compromise. The statewide issue, guidance versus law. The real issue is not whether towns like Pittsford support renewable energy or oppose it. The issue is the lack of clarity between what is required by law versus what is preferred by agencies. Towns deserve to know what language must be adopted, what is optional, what carries legal weight, what is ideological preference, and what the actual consequences are for declining optional content. Until this distinction becomes clear, Vermont towns will continue to experience confusion, conflict, and a sense of being pressured into adopting language that has no grounding in statute. If we have all these statutes, ladies and gentlemen, why? If we're going to have all these agencies making interpretations, and from year to year, will there be different interpretations from one legislative session to another? Will committees be dictating all of these changes, and how are towns supposed to manage their plans? Back to the article here. Enhanced energy plans were created to help towns participate more effective in the PUC process. But as agency policy has evolved far beyond statutory requirements, towns now face uncertainty over whether they are being asked to comply with law or with ideology. The debate emerging in Pittsford is not unique. It is a statewide conversation about the line between lawful planning requirements and agency-driven narrative language, and about whether towns should feel pressured to adopt language that is not grounded in statute or constitutional mandate. Until that line is clarified, Vermont's municipal volunteers will continue to navigate an unclear and at times conflicting landscape. Now, I've attended a lot of planning commission meetings, regional planning commission meetings, town planning commission meetings, select board meetings, and some of these issues, a lot of them have come up. And the one thing I can tell you is a lot of landowners, not just planning commission members and select board members, but a lot of landowners are beginning to ask the questions that this article raised. And they're about private property rights and why statutes are the way they are, and the statutes, if they're not clear enough, why agencies are allowed to be, or leading municipalities to believe that they must go in one direction or another. This is why I started this segment with what I said about private property rights. This is one of the reasons why I'm constantly harping, ladies and gentlemen, about going on legislature.vermont.gov and knowing who your legislators are and what it is that they're sponsoring and voting for. And looking, and the more, trust me, ladies and gentlemen, the more you read, the more you're going to start to understand where all of this stuff is going. And how since 2016 and earlier, the trend has been away from private property rights and even away from municipalities in general, and more regionalizing of control. No more, and you're seeing it. My next segment, we're going to be talking more about Act 73 with local control. It keeps coming up. Do you have local control? Ultimately, is private property rights. It's down to the individual. That's the most. That's the way it breaks down, and that's the way you. I hope you and my listening audience are breaking it down for yourselves. This has to be about local control, and it has to be about individual rights and private property rights. So we've already managed to burn through one segment, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to pay a few bills, so We shall return momentarily. You're listening to Right Side Up.
Hey, this is Steve from Granite Rock. I'd like to thank Mike Tagliavia and Right Side Up for being part of Granite Grok and Grok Media LLC's podcast network. You can check out all our programs every night of the week at 8 p.m., except on Tuesdays when we do Granite State Live, which starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Please make sure to check out all our programming, including Grok Talk, Granite State Live, Justice for All, Right Side Up, Manch Talk, The New England Take, and our newest edition, The Elsa Kurt Show. You can also check out content from Shadowband, The Blue Collar Intellectual, The Generation Report, and the Vermont Podcast. And be sure to visit granitegrok.com for news and opinion you can't get anywhere else.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Tagliavia. We're going to switch gears a little bit here. I'm still going to call this a local control issue because I still believe it is. And local, to me, when you boil it all the way down, in this case as well, boils down to the family. We're talking about education now. Act 73 was a big deal, still is a big deal in the state of Vermont. And I want to read through a little commentary that I found in Vermont Daily Chronicle, and then maybe try to go through some statistics. But this article is dated November 24, 2025, by Ben Kingsley. Act 73 Task Force didn't fail, they listened. Governor Scott says the Act 73 School Redistricting Task Force failed because it refused to deliver a mandatory consolidation map that would force Vermont into a handful of mega districts. Respectfully, I disagree with this assessment. To assess if the task force failed its mission, we should agree on what that mission was. Was it to reduce the number of school boards, create more opportunities for students, or generate cost savings? Those are three distinct goals. While some may argue that the former was the letter of the law, Act 73 in this case, most will agree that the latter two were the intent of the law. By those measures, the task force succeeded in its mission. After hearing from more than 5,000 Vermonters who overwhelmingly said, quote, keep your local schools, and our local boards, the task force chose to protect the community connections that make Vermont schools more than just buildings. Just as importantly, they recognized that the research shows no cost savings from consolidation and instead put forward a plan that actually achieves those goals. That is not failure, that is leadership. We at Campaign for Vermont have been making this exact case for over a decade. In 2014, we showed that larger school districts did not produce better outcomes or lower costs. In 2024, we updated the data, and found the same thing, plus clear evidence that supervisory union size and staffing ratios matter far more than district size. In March 2025, we released a pathway to viable education transformation, explicitly recommending replacing our 52 supervisory unions with roughly 15 regional education service agencies, ESAs, aligned with Vermont's career and technical career centers. This approach would leave local school boards and their community connections intact. The task force proposal, Cooperative Education Service Areas, looks remarkably like the model we laid out 8 months ago. Other states like New York's BOCES or Pennsylvania's intermediate units have proven this shared services approach delivers real savings in administration, special education, transportation, procurement, and professional development without destroying community identity. our own analysis showed plausible annual savings in the hundreds of millions of dollars by moving to 15 ESAs. The governor's frustration is understandable. There is no doubt that property taxes are crushing Vermonters. Education spending has increased a staggering 47% since 2019. But forcing the entire state into a few giant districts is not the answer. Act 46 already proved that forced mergers produce lawsuits, resentment, and little to no savings. Schools are the beating hearts of our rural towns. And I can, just to break from the article a minute, I can tell you when I did attend some of the meetings, this is one of the main arguments that was made, that the school is the heart of the community, and if you consolidate and close schools, you're going to completely change and destroy the community. So rip that out, and the research says you don't get efficiency, you get resentment. The task force heard that loud and clear. Instead of drawing arbitrary lines on a map, they proposed a framework that encourages districts to share the expensive stuff: administration, special ed, transportation, IT, purchasing, and HR, while keeping school leadership close to home. They just handed the legislature a workable path forward: regional cooperative services areas, preserved local boards, voluntary but incentivized mergers where communities want them. That is not failure. That is the first mature and well-researched education savings proposal Montpelier has seen in decades. Lawmakers should take the task force recommendations, flesh them out with the cost-saving details we and others have already modeled, and pass them in 2026. Do that, and we can finally bend the cost curve without breaking the connections between our schools and our communities. And just a little bit, because for whoever doesn't know who the author is, Ben Kingsley has over a decade of public policy experience in Vermont. Working for nonprofit organizations, he has shaped public policy in areas such as education, elections, and ethics. He currently serves as the interim executive director for Campaign for Vermont, a nonpartisan advocacy group seeking to grow the state's middle class. So just that commentary, I'm curious how many of you in the listening audience, maybe you do have kids in school and you are not happy with what's going on. You are, in my case, I have heard that school choice is a big factor. It's a huge factor. Not every community, not every town has tuitioning or school choice for the upper grades because they are not, the particular areas does not have an operating high school. So school choice came up a lot for me and probably came up a lot in a lot of towns. And school choice was not it was thought of with hostility when I was observing one meeting down in the Bradford area. So I don't think that school choice is top priority for many who are either in the legislature or were on the task force. I don't know everybody's view on it on the task force, but I know the one meeting I attended, every time that subject came up, there was, like I said, there was hostility toward it. I want to bring up something. I did a little bit of search here, and I just want to read you a little bit of what my search gave me as a result. As of late 2025, 36 states offer some form of private school choice program, such as vouchers, tax credit, scholarships, or education savings accounts, ESAs, including limited and universal programs. This number is up from 33 states at the start of the year due to new or expanded programs in states like Idaho, Texas, and Wyoming during the 2025 legislative session. 45 states have lower effective property tax rates than Vermont, which ranks fifth highest at around 1.71%, behind New Jersey, Illinois, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. Property taxes are the primary funding source for K through 12 education in most states, including Vermont's statewide education property tax. So this serves as a strong proxy for education taxes. Some analyses ranking by burden as a percentage of income place Vermont in highest, meaning up to 49 states could have lower burdens depending on the metric. All right, let's see. Private school choice. And ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I am a fierce proponent of school choice. And I say it because we know every one of us has choices that we can freely make in our lives, whether it's the choice of vehicle, the make and the model, the number of options you get with your vehicle, whether it's an internal combustion engine vehicle, whether it's a hybrid, whether it's an EV. When you go to the grocery store, there are thousands and thousands of choices for you to be able to make based on quality, based on price. And we don't have that in our schools. We don't have enough choice in our schools to drive the level of education that we need for our kids and for any cost savings. The little bit of competition that you will get for from school choice will help to drive the quality of education up. I honestly, truly believe that, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm going to get back into, I just did a couple of searches here, and I just want to read you back what I got. Private school choice programs in any form. As of late 2025, 36 states offer at least one form of private school choice, whether they be vouchers, education savings accounts, tax credit scholarships, or similar programs. Adoption rates vary sharply by region, with the South nearly fully covered, often through universal or broad programs, while the Northeast has the fewest options. Estimated breakdown based on 2025 legislative outcomes and tracking sources like EdChoice and the American Federation for Children. The South has 16 states, 15 of the 16, or 94 to 100%. The Midwest has 12 states, 11% of those, or 92% of them, have some sort of school choice. The West, 13 states, 9 to 10 of them, or 69 to 77%. The Northeast has 9 states, only 3 to 4 states, 33 to 44%, primarily New Hampshire's ESA, Pennsylvania's tax credit programs, and Rhode Island's tax credit scholarship. Universal or near universal school choice. These programs are available to all or nearly all families, the main focus of recent school choice expansions. Regional differences are even starker here. As of mid-2025, with a June update, with no major reversals reported since, includes the 2025 enactments in states like Tennessee, Texas, Idaho, and Wyoming. 18 states have universal or near universal programs. Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, Minnesota, Montana, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Ohio, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, West Virginia, Wyoming. Did you hear Vermont in that, ladies and gentlemen? I didn't. We need it in there. We need it in there. The South clearly dominates, with half of its states offering universal access, more than the other 3 regions combined. Recent growth, 2023 to 2025, has been almost entirely in the South and interior West, reflecting stronger Republican legislative control in those regions. Let me read that phrase back. Reflecting stronger Republican legislative control in those regions. In other words, if you want school choice, ladies and gentlemen, and you're in a Republican-led state in their legislature, that's how you're going to get it. The Northeast remains the clear laggard. We're in it, ladies and gentlemen, with resistance strongest on the coast and in Democratic strongholds. Again, you're right in the middle of it, ladies and gentlemen. Overall, school choice, especially universal forms, has become a deeply regional issue, concentrated in the South and parts of Midwest and West, while remaining limited or non-existent in much of the Northeast and Pacific states. Now, it's remained limited because of, like my little search revealed, the control that is within the legislatures. So this is one of the problems that we face. And this is why I keep bringing up, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm going to keep harping on it. Legislature.vermont.gov. Know who your representatives are. Know what they stand for, what they support, and what they don't. Your tax dollars are at risk. Your private property rights are at risk. Your local control is at risk. This is why, even after a hard day's work, when you think you're tired, that you need to look and see when your next select board meeting is and when your next planning commission meeting is, and go and pay attention. And I think going to a few of those will be enough to fire you up and get you to want to attend more so you can be part of what happens in your town to preserve your private property rights and your local control with respect to schools. So we've managed to burn through one more segment here, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to pay a few more bills. You're listening to Right Side Up.
Not everyone can get up every day and look for ways to piss people off. But here at GraniteRock.com, we do that almost every day. I can't tell you how many times someone's lost their SHIT and threatened to end us. But we're still here, pissing people off. It's almost like we enjoy it. And we've been doing it since 2006. That's almost 2 decades of news, politics, and opinion, and now podcasts, and we're just getting started. We believe in principles before parties and politicians. We defend free markets and individual liberty, and if that makes you mad, it makes us smile. We're like Grandma after she stopped caring what other people thought. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Right Side Up. My name is Mike Taglavia. Before we get back into the show, I want to remind our listeners, rightsideUpradio@gmail.com if you'd like to drop us a line. If you cannot hear us on the radio, you're out of the listening range, go to WNTK.com. Scroll to the podcast button. Click on it. Scroll down to Right Side Up. And you can listen to any number of our shows. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. Hopefully you'll share them with friends. You can find us on 802 Scoop Facebook and 802 Scoop YouTube. You can find us on Podbean. You can also find us on GraniteGrock.com. And speaking of GraniteGrock.com, I would like to talk to you about an opinion piece that I found on Granite Rock. This refers to something that happened at the national level, but it also happened, like I said, Granite Rock is based out of New Hampshire. So this happened, and it involves a member of the federal delegation from New Hampshire. And this is an opinion piece, The Military Chain of Command, by John Diarmond, Major General, USA, retired, November 23, 2025. Let's see. Recently, Congresswoman Goodlander, a military veteran, participated in a video with several Democratic members of Congress, also veterans. The apparent intent of this video was to directly interfere with the military chain of command, specifically the authority specified under Article 2 of the Constitution and the executive powers it grants to the President of the United States in his role as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. After watching the video, it could only conclude that its purpose was to sow dissension among the members of the military by attempting to goad active duty members into questioning orders issued by their respective chain of command. This is extremely dangerous ground and goes to the heart of maintaining effective military discipline and the absolute necessity of ensuring a credible and effective military chain of command. The military chain of command is one of, if not the most significant part of the entire military structure. It has many purposes, among them to establish authority and responsibility, to effect rapid decision-making, and to maintain good order and discipline. It also has the mission of protecting subordinates from illegal orders and is the linchpin between political direction and military execution. It ensures unity of effort. At the end of the day, military members know who is and who is not in their chain of command. Members of Congress are not in the military chain of command and exercise no command authority over individual service members. Our military has recently gone through a devastating period of significant decline in recruiting, retention, and keeping the focus on the warrior ethos, all caused by the introduction of the Marxist ideology of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, replacing our traditional and effective practice of using merit and individual performance for promotion and assignments. The recent return to merit and performance has had an immediate positive effect. Young men and women are once again electing to step forward and provide selfless service to the nation. The result have been all the services having made their recruiting goals for this year are on track to meet or exceed next year's. A significant accomplishment and a tremendous boost to readiness and our warfighting capability. Members of Congress, especially those with military backgrounds, know how important and difficult it is to maintain our warfighting capability. It takes a lot of hard work and dedication on the part of leaders at all levels. The glue that holds this capability together is the chain of command. This makes the comments of Congresswoman Goodlander especially egregious and hurtful. She and the other members of this group have had more than ample opportunities to have their voices heard as part of our legislative process, starting with the House and Senate Armed Services Committees, among others. Instead, she chose to insert herself into the military chain of command by making a public statement, speaking directly to military members, insinuating, without a single shred of evidence or any examples of unlawful orders being issued by the president. If that was not enough, this group, again with no examples, told our service members they had an obligation to ignore and disobey any order they did not approve of. I believe this is the first time in the 250-year history of the armed forces that this has happened. Encouraging members of the armed forces to disobey orders issued by their chain of command places service members at risk of potential court-martial under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. In most cases, this is a career-ending event, carrying a bad conduct discharge with you into civilian life. You also lose a significant number of veteran benefits. I think it would be safe to say that none of these members of Congress would be standing by to help. I want to read that again, because this is true. If someone does follow the bad advice of these now in national news and national events I've seen and on social media, the six Congress and senators are being referred to as the Sedition Six. I think it would be safe to say that none of these members of Congress would be standing by to help. That's true, ladies and gentlemen. Looking back, one can only describe this video as bizarre, and we must ask ourselves why this video was made and who coordinated and paid to produce this public service announcement. The video was an insult to all our veterans and their families and the active duty service members who call New Hampshire home. It is also insulting to the military chain of command and our military lawyers, whose job is to ensure the integrity of our military leadership. Members of Congress who participated in this attempt to usurp the constitutional powers of the Commander-in-Chief and to cause dissension in the ranks of the armed forces should be held to account. This deliberate and calculated act of misconduct cannot be allowed to go unpunished. And again, this is by John Diarmond, Major General, USA, retired. Now I'm just going to editorialize here, ladies and gentlemen, but that video, I did not watch the whole thing. I've seen parts of it, and I've seen written excerpts of what was said in it. This, to me, ladies and gentlemen, is nothing but Democrat members of Congress who are basically sore losers. They don't like the president, and they're doing everything they can to undermine his authority. No matter whether you like the man or not, are we willing to listen to facts and data? Are we willing to allow common sense to rule the day? That's what I'm questioning. How many of us out there are willing to look at common sense? Forget about who's sitting in the White House for a minute and look at what's going on in the world and the country. How many of you listening believe that our border is far more secure today than it was on January 1st of this year? I believe it's far more safe and is far more secure. How many of you believe that we've seen the data where even in my state of Vermont, where there has been less fentanyl crossing our borders because of our border being more secure, which means hopefully there will be fewer overdoses recorded for the entire year. Because I know in this state and countrywide, overdose deaths from now fentanyl, not even from heroin, are what's killing so many of our young people. How many people watched as Washington, D.C. was cleaned up and made safer in a matter of days, in a matter of weeks, because of an order from the commander-in-chief to the National Guard? And how many people saw the video of the mayor of D.C. acknowledging that the president's help made the city safer and cleaner? Because it did. And she did acknowledge it because she had to. She had no choice. So common sense. How many of you seen, I was talking to a family member who said, driving back from north on 91, there's still people with this no kings protesting on bridges and stuff. I thought they finally a couple of weeks ago gave up on that, but apparently they're still doing it on weekends on bridges. I read one article, and it basically, there was somebody, I think they had either a psychological, a psychiatry or psychological background or training, and they said these No Kings rallies are basically open air therapy sessions for people who are just disappointed or upset or do not want to accept that their candidate did not win, and they want to ignore the fact of who actually the president is. And I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it. The only true No Kings rally that we have in this country is on July 4th, and it's called Independence Day. So this last episode where we have 6 members of Congress trying to break down the ranks and the chain of command in the military, because they will do everything to stop and the effectiveness and the efficiency of the current administration. This is just one more episode in probably one of many that we're coming up on 1 year now, almost. what are we, a little more than 2 months away from 1 year since Inauguration Day for the 47th President of the United States. And we're seeing the progress that we've made. We're seeing lower. How many of us are looking at the actual numbers and we're seeing inflation dropping? We're not seeing prices fall yet. Why are we not seeing prices fall? Have we seen interest rates dropped at the rate that we know they should have dropped? We're not seeing them drop yet. And I know I was just having coffee with a friend, and he was expressing his concern over tariffs because of a vehicle that he needs to buy parts for that are import only. So there are some things I'm sure that all of us can find that they disagree with. But the only question I have for everyone out there is, how many of us out there is perfect? Nobody is perfect. Nobody I know professes to be perfect. Especially, look, in the legislature, how many of us in the legislature do you, and in the listening audience, actually believe that the people who are serving in your state legislature or in Congress are perfect? I know that the answer is everybody is going to say that none of us who are serving are perfect. But the issue is asking yourself, where does their intent come from? Where does it come from? Does it come from a sense of duty, or does it come from a sense of the ends justify the means? And how many years have we seen where members of Congress, members of certain parties will do things simply because the ends justify the means? If you like constitutional order, if you like the rule of law, if you want to feel safe in your town and your cities, then we need the rule of law, ladies and gentlemen, and we don't need people trying to undermine a duly elected president. So I agree with the commentary from this USA retired Major General. And I hope most of you, if not all of you in my audience, would agree. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of another show. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll tell a friend about it. Please do the best you can to enjoy your Thanksgiving Day festivities with family and friends. Remember, stay safe, stay informed, listen to Right Side Up.